You're listening to
The Bart Factor
with your host, Bart Robley.
Good morning, everybody. I am Bart Robley, and you are listening to my podcast, The Bart Factor. I want to thank everybody for checking it out. I want to thank a couple of sponsors that I have for the Bart Factor. First and foremost, Aquarian Drumheads. I've been with Aquarian Drumheads for over 20 years. They're incredible people. They're incredibly good friends, and I love their products. If you try them, I can promise you that you will not be disappointed. Aquarian Drumheads, amazing stuff. Also, drummerswag.com. It's a fun website. We've got a lot of great drumming educational material on there. We also have a lot of great fun drummer t-shirts and stuff like that on there. So check out drummerswag.com. So, you know what? A couple other things I want to say. I have, before I get started, I got a lot of my friends who are drummers have reached out to me and said that they want to be on the podcast. And obviously, if you've done that, I've hopefully got back to you and said, yeah, we'll make it happen. I had pretty lofty goals when I first started doing this. I wanted to do a podcast a week, but I'm a pretty busy guy, and it's looking more like it's going to be about one a month. So, so if you want to be on here, I promise I will get to you. And thank you guys so much for reaching out, and for the people who have listened to it, I want to say and liked it and left some positive feedback, whether it be on Facebook or YouTube or whatever. I want to say thank you so much. I really appreciate it. One of the things that I have tried to do so far, I just started the podcast. If you go back and listen to my other ones, it's all been drum related. It's either been, I'm talking about being a drummer on the road, or just being a drummer in general, and giving you some of my tips and things that have helped me and helped my students over the years. In here, and it's all been focused mainly towards drummers, other musicians as well, but mainly towards drummers. I've also interviewed my A&R rep, Chris Brady from Aquarian Drumheads, talked to a buddy of mine, Dave Good, and interviewed him. But today I'm going to be talking to you guys about something that I'm very passionate about, that I'm reaching out to all musicians, all artists, just anybody really in general, because this isn't really a drumming podcast, I don't think today, but it's a podcast that I think is going to help anybody really, whatever it is you do. You can just take drumming out and insert whatever it is that you do, and hopefully what I'm about to talk about will help you. I am going to talk about the benefits of doing yoga and playing drums. So once again, whatever it is that you do in life, if you're listening to this and you're into doing yoga, or you want to try yoga and you're not a drummer, well, that's great. Whatever, once again, I'm going to be talking about drums, and if you make widgets, take drumming out, insert widget making, and hopefully it will help you. A few years ago, I don't remember exactly what year, I didn't really Google it and find out, but Modern Drummer magazine did an expose on the benefits of doing yoga and drumming. And I thought it was fantastic. So today what I'm going to do is, that's what I'm going to talk about, is the benefits of doing yoga and on drumming, and how it's helped me so much, and kind of give you some of the benefits of what it's done for me, and also for some of my students. I want to start with my disclaimers here too, so that nobody comes out and I get sued or something like that. First of all, I'm not a yoga teacher. I'm not a yoga professional. I'm a practitioner thereof, and so I'm not going to do a dissertation on yoga and different poses and stuff like that. What I'm going to talk about is how yoga has helped me, and how it can possibly help you. So once again, not a professional yoga teacher here. I'm a professional drummer. I'm also not a medical professional, so none of this stuff that I'm telling you is medical advice. If you are having trouble with some of the things that I'm going to talk about today in this podcast, don't just listen to me, seek out a medical professional. I'm going to tell you some of the things that I've had trouble with, and how yoga has helped reverse the effects of it, or yoga has helped reverse the effects on friends of mine, people that have had some of these problems. So anyway, let's get going. So first of all, I think the most important thing for me that yoga has done in my drumming is just the focus factor. And what I mean by that, when they talk about yoga, they talk about working out or whatever. Sometimes they'll talk about the mind, body, soul experience, and I really think that that's important. And the mind is a tricky thing sometimes. We can really trick ourselves into believing certain things, or we can really listen to that inner voice that's speaking negative to us at the wrong time. One of the things that I think everybody suffers from especially when they're younger, is that negative inner voice. Now, I don't know what yours says, but what I mean by that is, that voice is going to pop up at the most inopportune time, and it's going to say things like, "You're going to blow it. Why are you trying? Why are you doing this? You're going to make a fool out of yourself. Stop now." Whatever it's saying to you, you have to learn to squash that down. One of the things that I tell every one of my students, I think that it is so important, is to be able to focus in on what you're doing, not how you are doing. Now, what I mean by that is you want to be able to focus in on what it is that you are playing. If you're having a bad day, being a musician is just like having any other job on the face of the planet. Sometimes you are going to have a bad day. If you're having a bad day, the last thing that you want to do is sit there and focus on that. You don't want to sit there and focus on, "Oh my God, I just blew it. I'm playing so bad. I am not on top of my game. I'm not feeling it tonight. Oh my God," and just let it spiral out of control. You cannot do that. You have to focus in on what it is you're doing. Letting go of that inner voice that is being detrimental to you and mentally beating you up is so hard to do, but you have to do it. Now, yoga has really helped me with that. I practice two different kinds of yoga. I practice a vinyasa style yoga, and I practice Bikram yoga. Both of these yogas that I do are in a heated room. Bikram yoga is 26 poses, and the room is heated to 95 to 100 degrees. And the humidity level is usually around 40%. So sometimes, and it is so mentally challenging to not leave the room, not to just walk away and go, "Forget this." The focus factor from doing Bikram yoga has been so helpful to me when I'm playing music. Now, I'll give you a couple of examples here of how it's helped me. Okay, I have the incredible opportunity to work with an amazing record producer, Michael Blum, on a fairly regular basis. I've done numerous albums with the man. I've done a lot of one-offs, things for commercial use in movies and television and stuff like that. And sometimes when you're in the studio, it's if you don't know anything in the world about recording, it can be way different than what you think it is. You're not in the room with a bunch of musicians. You're all separated and isolated from one another sonically and visually sometimes, so you can't even see the people who are playing with you. You just hear them in your headphones. In my case, a lot of times I don't have any other musicians with me. I'm reading a chart and playing to a click track, which is basically a metronome, and I'm just reading the chart and having to sell it without any other musicians there. And believe me when I tell you, that can be so mentally taxing to do any of those things, because you're working with a record producer. You're playing with a click track. You're trying to play metronomically perfect, right in time with this thing, and still make it musical. Those demons can really creep in, and you can sit there and think to yourself, "Oh my God, what's the producer thinking? What's the engineer thinking? Oh man, did they hear that? I think I'm a little ahead of the click. Oh no, maybe I'm a little behind the click. Oh man, here comes that one passage that I got to read, and I always have trouble with it. Here it comes. Don't blow it now. Whatever. All these things can creep in and crush you. So yoga has, for me, has really helped just, losing that, just to lose all that. So for those 2 minutes or 5 minutes that I'm sitting behind the drum set and reading a chart or playing along with other musicians, I'm in the moment. I'm not worried about what is going to happen. After I'm done, I'm not worried about what has happened before then. I'm focusing on what I'm doing. So it's been incredibly beneficial there. Now, I think after you do a take, it's okay to go in and listen to the producer and the engineer and the songwriter and say, hey, as a drummer, did I give you what you needed? Am I doing what you want? Because, that's just part of doing the job. But when you're in the moment and you're in there playing, you've got to focus in 100% on what you're doing. Now, the same thing can obviously happen live. You get to the gig, you get set up, and, in my case, I'm a drummer, and I have a lot of drummer friends, and I'll be playing the gig, and I look out there, and there's 10 of my favorite drummer friends, and they're great players, and they're standing there watching me play, and oh my gosh, I got to step up my game, and you can't do that, because once you start doing that, again, instead of thinking about what you're doing, all you're doing is thinking about impressing all your drummer friends. You can't do that. You got to focus in on what it is that you are doing. If you're doing it well, then obviously your friends are going to be impressed, but don't play for the drummers in the room. Play for the song. That is so important. And so anyway, once again, those are just kind of two, aspects of yoga and where they've helped me mentally. And again, I can sit here all day and go on about different scenarios of things that go on inside your head when you're playing. But those are two of them that have been really helpful. Two areas that I've been helped in, through yoga, and just being able to focus in is so important. The other thing that I want to talk about, I think the physical aspects of it. Again, I'm going to pre-reference what I'm going to say with this. Some of the things I'm going to say right now, again, I'm not a medical professional. I'm a drummer, but some of the things that I have seen happen over the years of playing the instrument and playing instruments, being around musicians, I've seen a lot of repetitive motion injuries, things such as carpal tunnel syndrome, tendonitis, tennis elbow, stuff like that. If you suffer from those, go to the doctor, go to a chiropractor, seek out medical attention, obviously. But I also, think that staying flexible and really having a good exercise regime will help lessen some of those problems. I've heard some of my yoga friends and some of my yoga teachers say that, when we're born, we go from elastic to plastic. It's so true, man. I mean, how many times you wake up in the morning and you bend down to put on your slippers and you're like, oh my God, my back, Well, yoga for me has diminished some of those and some of those problems. I have numerous friends who have suffered from tendonitis and carpal tunnel syndrome. And luckily, knock on wood, some wood, I have not suffered from any of those things. And really, this started for me way before I started doing yoga. When I was about 14 or 15 years old, I took a drum lesson from this guy. And when I've paid for all my drum lessons when I was a kid growing up. And I went and took a drum lesson, and I paid for it. And when we did the lesson, we didn't play a single note. All he did was show me these stretches for my wrists, my forearms, and my hands. Also my calves and my feet as well. And at the time, after the lesson, I was so pissed off. I was like, man, I just took a drum lesson from this dude. We didn't play a single note, and he took my money. And so I did the stretches out of spite because I'd paid for them. Some people would call that, call me cheap. Some people would call me frugal. I like to think I'm frugal. Anyway, if I paid for these things, I'm going to do them. And so I did them. And what was the worst drum lesson I'd ever taken soon turned into, wow, this is the best drum lesson I've ever taken. Because when I wouldn't do those stretches, whether it be before a performance or a practice session or whenever, I would, cramp up, and I would get, I could get, what's called trigger finger, where your fingers just lock up. I had all these problems. But if I stay stretched out and I did these stretches, I didn't have any problems. And again, this is a podcast, not a video cast, so I can't really show you the stretches. If you're interested, reach out to me, and I'll show them to you in a lesson or via Skype, whatever. But they really did help me. Lo and behold, years later, when I'd have a friend of mine that would start suffering from some of these things, and they would go to the doctor, they would come back and the doctor would have helped them, and some of the stretches, and a lot of them were just through physical therapy and stretches. And some of the stretches that I had been doing for years were the same ones that their doctor would show them. And if I mentioned it to them, be like, yeah, I've seen you do those stretches for a long time, before we're playing backstage or whatever. So what yoga did was it kind of helped those go to the next level. Now, again, I'm not going to sit here and go through a dissertation of different poses and stuff like that are for your hands and for your feet, but just certain things, certain poses, cat and cow pose, they do really help stretch out your wrists. You can move your wrists around. Down dog really helps stretch out my calves and my ankles, all these things. And it is so beneficial to my playing. I think it is incredibly, incredibly, incredibly important to stay physically and mentally healthy, especially when you, being in a band, when you're on the road. There's nothing worse than getting physically ill when you are on the road and you have 1 or 20 shows. It doesn't matter. Nobody wants to be sick when you're sitting up there on stage playing. So yoga has really helped that a lot for me. It's really helped me stay physically and mentally healthy. I've always done something to try to stay physically fit, whether it be, lift weights or run. I did martial arts for years and years and years. And all of those things, lifting weights, I didn't, weights are heavy. I don't like lifting weights. That sucks. Martial arts, I really enjoyed the martial arts, and it's a lot of fun. I really especially enjoyed working out on the bag, The problem is when you go from working out on the bag and you get into a ring with another human being, they're punching and kicking back, and that's obviously very detrimental to one's physical health. And I ran for years too, and running brought back an old injury where I ended up having to have knee surgery. Yoga is very low impact. It's and you can injure yourself doing yoga if you're not careful, but yoga is very low impact. And I remember one time, it was after my knee surgery, one of my yoga instructors was talking. We were, I forget what pose we were in, but one of the things they always will tell you in yoga is lock your knees, lock your knees, lock your knees. And the yoga instructor said, when you do this, you're strengthening your knees from the inside out, not just the muscles around the knees. You're strengthening them from the inside out. And I thought that was so cool. I had a very dear friend of mine, a drummer friend of mine, that ended up having to have knee replacement surgery about 2 years ago, and it's been an uphill battle for this guy ever since. So I'm hoping, knock on wood, that my knee injury doesn't come back to haunt me. But so far so good. I think I'm good for another 40,000 miles or so. And I do accredit that, a lot of that, to a good, strong workout regime and yoga practice. Now, one of the other things that talking about being on the road, young guys out there, young girls out there, you see the movies and you see gosh, I want to be in a band, I want to be on the road, I want to tour, and it's fun and it's great and it's awesome. But again, the last thing you want to do is be sick on the road. And it's not what you see in the movies. It's not, touring is grueling. Touring is hard. Being on the road is a lot of work. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not saying it's horrible. I love being on the road, but it is a ton of work. So you want to keep yourself both physically and mentally strong. A minute ago, I was talking about Bikram yoga and how hot it was and how much you sweat. Now, I know maybe that's a little bit gross, but I tell you, man, to some people out there, I think it's kind of gross, but I tell you, when you sweat like that, you detox your system like crazy. I had one of my yoga teachers years ago. She says, okay, everybody, let's get going. Let's get sweaty. You want to detox before you retox. I thought that was fantastic. But I'm telling you, it is so true. You don't want to be sick when you're out on the road. You don't want to be sick if you got a show down the street from your house. Being on stage and trying to entertain people or play at the top of your peak performance, When you got the flu or just a cold, man, it can be a real drag. And luckily for me, after I started practicing yoga, my health, just my overall health with things like that, man, it was just so beneficial. The other thing too, I think having, I said a minute ago at the beginning of the podcast, some workouts talk about mind, body, soul. And I think that's obviously one of the things that yoga does. And one of the things that a lot of people don't take into consideration, I think, when when they're younger and they're musicians and they want to be in a band or just whatever it is that you're doing in life. Again, I'm talking about drumming. I told you could insert anything here, but for me, it's drumming and being in a band. You have to deal with other people. You have to deal with other people who are artistic. And most artistic people are very opinionated about the way that they think their art should be performed and done. And I mean, that can even be a cover tune. So a lot of times you're dealing with other people and their personalities. You're not, I'm really fortunate. I want to pre-reference what I'm going to say right now with this. I'm really fortunate. I've been in the Sam Morrison Band for 17 years. I've been all over the world with the man. We play all the time. It's been amazing. The musicians that are in the band are phenomenal players. They're great people and great friends of mine. I love all of them dearly. However, they are people, and they know, and they think the same thing about me. You're not always going to see eye to eye with people, okay? You're just not. It's not going to happen. Your schedules are not always going to line up. Sometimes you are going to have to go out of your way for the betterment of the greater sum of the whole. This, again, can be mentally taxing. It can be physically taxing. You've got to realize that, again, when you don't, if you're not always seeing eye to eye with people, you can end up starting to think real negative about them. One of the things that I've found, and again, they can think the same things about you, and then those demons start creeping into our heads again, What does he think? Why is he being that way? All that sort of negative stuff. But I found that going and taking a yoga class, if I'm in that situation, it kind of helps me wipe the slate clean. You go in there, you take a class, you have a great yoga class, and at the end of it, you always do after any workout. Doesn't matter if it's yoga, lifting weights, running, life cycle, whatever. After any workout, you've released endorphins. You just feel better. And after you feel better, you kind of, can look at things and go, wow, life is pretty good. I don't have it so bad. So it's a great way of helping you deal with things like that. One of the things too that I think that life is everybody, has a different walk in life. They do different things. They have different dreams and goals and aspirations. And one of the things that I'm incredibly busy. And I said at the beginning of the podcast, I'm a very busy guy. I go 7 days a week. I'm a self-confessed workaholic. I work all the time. That being said, I have not had a job in years. And to all my drum students out there, and to anybody that hires me to play drums for them, or anybody that hires me to play a recording session or anything like that, I want to say that I take what I do incredibly serious. I never phone it in. But still, when I say I haven't had a job in years, what I mean by that is I haven't had to stand on scaffolding 30 feet in the air and hang drywall, or hang over the edge of a balcony painting a railing or something like that. And there's nothing wrong with those jobs. I did that for many years. I've had many different kinds of jobs before I was able to make a living as a musician for about the last 20 years now. But I've had many jobs before that maybe weren't, the most... they weren't being a musician. It wasn't following my dream. It was just a way to make a buck. And so doing yoga gives me that point where I can sit back and I can be playful and I can go, you know what? Life is really good. I make a living doing something that I love. I don't work the drums. I play the drums. And I kind of can give myself that little mental reminder so that, back to what I was saying a minute ago, let's say I'm feeling a little bit down about, oh my gosh, I got, 40 drum students this week, and I got to get the bus ready, and we're going on the road, and I got to pack the gear, and you know, your brain can run away with you. You know, I've heard people say that, you know, sometimes they have a beehive going off in their head. I thought that was a great analogy. You know, there's a million things going around in your head, and again, yoga really helps me calm all that stuff down. It's been so beneficial to me. So again, like I said at the top of the podcast, this is not a dissertation on different yoga poses. This is not a dissertation on medical stuff and being healthy. It's something that where yoga has helped my life as a professional musician and continues to help my life as a professional musician and so many other areas of my life on a daily basis. The reason I decided to do this podcast was because I think that it's important for people to realize that our musicians, sometimes you need to, you need a step away. You need something to kind of clean the slate. You know, some people it's bike riding, some people it's walking their dogs, some people it's, whatever. Mine happens to be going to some yoga classes and really enjoying that part of my life. So that was one of the main reasons. The other reason too was the mental aspects. I talk to my drum students about that all the time, just staying focused in on what you're playing. Don't sit there in the lesson and worry about what I'm thinking. Think about what it is that you're playing, and think about how you're going to play it. And I think that, again, the mental aspects are such a big deal, and yoga has really, really helped me focus my mind and focus my playing for the better. I also think it's important to have a good, healthy life. No matter what it is you do in life, you do not want to be walking around with aches and pains and sores and not feeling good and everything like that. And yoga has really helped me in those areas of my life. I'm very blessed to have my health. I remember one time there was this thing in Modern Drummer magazine a few years back where they would ask drummers silly questions like, what was your favorite performance? And it was just like a little one-page thing. So what's your favorite performance? What's your favorite recording? What's your worst performance? What do you wish you could not have done? And they're just fun to read. And I was reading this one with Kenny Aronoff, and he's one of my favorite drummers. And one of the questions was, what is your most prized possession? And his answer was, my health. And I thought that was perfect, because without your health, you can't do anything, man. You just can't. So stay healthy, stay physically fit, do something. I hope that if you've been looking into maybe doing yoga, I hope that maybe this podcast kind of, again, kind of stirred you up and maybe, hey, you know what? I think I'm going to try it. I think I'm going to give it a shot. Go down to a yoga studio. Usually they'll have like an introductory offer, 3 classes for however much money and kind of get yourself started there. I think that, if this has helped you in any way, shape, or form, I'm glad, and I hope that maybe it took off some of the, a lot of times people think that if you practice yoga, you just sit around in a room with your legs crossed and you sit there and go, Om. But it's not that, man. It's a great workout. Again, mind, body, soul, keeps your core strong, keeps your mind strong, helps your playing, helps your focus. So that's the end of that. I hope you guys liked it. I hope that I answered some questions. Maybe I made some more questions for you or caused you to have some more questions. So if I did, please leave your comments below and maybe reach out to me on Facebook, on Messenger, or on Twitter or Instagram, or if you have my phone number, call me or send me a text or a smoke signal. Whatever. I would love to hear from you. Have a great day. Thanks again to Aquarian Drumheads. Thanks again to drummerswag.com. You guys have a great day, a great week, and I will see you in the next episode of The Bart Factor. See ya.